And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God.
Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that will decide if any further aggression is warranted at our enemy podcast, The Biffler, at some point in the next 2 weeks. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too, coughing into the microphone. How you doing tonight, Lori?
I wasn't coughing into the microphone. I was coughing away from the microphone.
There we have it again. Tonight is Monday, June 23rd, 2025. Back in the CIB chair for the first time in 2 weeks, coincidentally enough, because of baseball. Lots of baseball happening. Hard for us to get time to record with as late as the baseball runs. The good news is tonight we played a baseball game a full hour plus away from the home basement studios here. But the game was such a laugher that they called it after 3 innings, and so we got to leave early, and here we are.
Wow.
We put those East Orange 12-year-olds to shame.
They'd already been put to shame twice, so.
Was there some sort of run differential? What triggered this?
Yeah, during the All-Star tournament portion of the season, they have 15 runs after 3 innings and then 10 runs at any point after 4 innings, and the game will be over.
Okay.
As long as it's home team ahead, like as long as the team that could potentially stage a comeback has batted in that portion of the inning, then the game will be over. And that was the case tonight. We scored our 14th and 15th run in the 3rd inning, and that concluded the festivities for the evening.
It was so hot.
It was so fucking hot.
Yeah. The umpire had to go home.
Yeah, the umpire was taken to the emergency room, actually.
Wow, really?
In a truck.
Just not hydrating? What's going on?
No, he's probably not hydrating.
Older. I mean, he was hydrating. It was not a hydration issue. He apparently spent most of the day. This is what I heard. He was at Quantico on the gun range for most of the day as part of his job.
FBI headquarters?
That's what I was told.
Wow. Marines.
Before coming down here and trying to umpire a Little League baseball game in 98 degrees and full sunshine. He called time. He was the field umpire, out in the bases, and he said to somebody, "I'm seeing a lot of black and white dots." And it's like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. That's not a good sign, right?
Yeah, probably want to have a seat there, old man.
As far as you know, still doing well, this person?
Yeah, as far as I know. I think he's going to be fine.
Probably just needed to sit in the air conditioning.
Yeah.
Yesterday?
Some good air conditioning at the hospital, right? Yeah, we were yesterday. It was similarly hot, maybe not quite as bad yesterday. And we played a baseball game at 12:30 in the afternoon, and
because church.
Yeah, so we couldn't start earlier than that. So the first game of the day was 12:30, and then after that we stuck around
just
to
Bob
scout. And yeah, the kids went home, but I stuck around to do some managerial scouting of the.
He took notes.
Opposition teams, and yes, in fact, took notes on the players and their performance. These are children. I must reiterate, I was a 42-year-old man in a hat that says Monticello All-Stars across it, taking notes on the physical performance of children.
12.
10, 11, and 12-year-old children.
Yeah, they're not. They're kids. They're not like 8.
But yeah, we outside all day, super fucking hot, and we at like 4:15.
There was a break.
There was a break between games because the middle game was such a laugher that they called that one after 3 innings also, and so that was a 22-0 finish, and we had like an hour between games, so we went to the Starbucks to get a cup of coffee. So I was kind of
It
dragging.
was euphoric in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The air conditioning. They probably thought we were on drugs.
Yeah. It was as though like that nice feeling of stepping out of a like once you're freshly showered and have clean clothes on, even though I was like sopping wet.
Oh,
Like,
we were
'cause I'd
disgusting.
sweat through both layers and like, just but like walking in there felt like being freshly dressed after a nice cool shower in the summer.
Yeah. Bit of a heat wave everywhere lately. It was hot down here also.
It's going to be even worse tomorrow night, apparently. Even hotter and less pleasant.
We might have more of a breeze, though.
Let's hope so. We certainly have more shade on our field.
We have more shade. It's just better here.
Oh, this is a closer venue?
Well, this one's
You don't have
our home field.
Yeah, we had to
Okay.
travel an hour each of the last 3 days to play baseball, but tomorrow.
And hopefully again
tomorrow
on
we're hosting.
Saturday.
And we need a win, and in all likelihood, we stay in and keep playing baseball. Anyway, it's been fun. We got our butts kicked against McIntyre as expected, and then we lost a game on Sunday that we probably, I don't know. We play that team 10 times. I'll bet we win 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah,
but we just,
something like that. At least half.
we did not play well on Sunday,
Bad luck.
and had a bunch of bad luck. But the Bats woke up today. We finally scored some fucking runs, and we get to, as sort of half expected, we kind of thought, just make it to Tuesday, probably have to win that game to stay in, and that's the situation that we're in. So, should be fun. The boy is sad because he is soft, because he was too hot, and he said he was hot, and he didn't want to stay in to continue catching, and so I said, fine. This other kid can catch. And then he was surprised to find himself on the bench in the 3rd inning. Like, well, what did you expect? You took yourself out of your position. I'm not going to find some other position for you on the field. You asked not to play catcher. You may sit on the bench. There are 4 other kids who want to be in a baseball game who had been on the bench previously. But enough about our small bore little wars here on the home front. Abe, the Indiana Pacers lost.
Yes.
And it cost me my high-stakes bet.
Yes,
Careful listeners of the show will remember that I saw that the Pacers were the steep underdog, and shortly before the series started, threw $50 down on them to win the whole thing. And they took it all the way to 7 games.
Yeah.
And then lost.
And they were doing okay until the leg injury.
I mean, they had a 1-point lead at the half.
Yeah. By the way, it sucks for you, Bob. It's Game 7 on a Sunday evening, and usually if a game is big enough, doesn't matter the sport, I'll go to one of the nearby bars to watch it, just to kind of interact with the people. And I did that, and there was a surprising number of women. I'm like, I don't know if they liked all of this sporting stuff. It comes in,
basketball's for girls.
No, but it was just the setup was weird. It was like like just groups of women at tables. I was like, oh, that's okay, whatever. And
they were not there for the fucking Game 7 of the NBA. I don't care what Lori is saying here about basketball being for girls.
So I'm at the bar, so I turn to the woman next to me, so I'm like, you have a rooting interest?
Is this
like,
another gay bar story? Are you telling me
not a
you
gay bar.
stumbled upon another gay bar and this was one of the lesbian gay bars?
No, this is not a
It was
dedicated
Melissa
gay bar.
Etheridge karaoke night?
No, so TVs are all showing the game, Game 7, and I'm just talking, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't really follow basketball, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? She's like, oh, I live around here, right? That's as far, and we just kind of we're talking about other things. Halfway through the second quarter, half of the televisions switch, and the audio feed switches to this reality show, Love is Blind, or Love Island, or some show.
Love Island.
You went to a
everybody-
bar that was a watch party for Love Island?
Yes, but I'm like, there's like a game. I know that nobody here cares about this basketball game, but like, there's like a Game 7. Like, what are we doing here? It's not like a sports bar, so I can lodge a complaint. But anyways, this show, I mean, the only reality show that I do watch is Survivor, and that show has hidden immunity idols. There are obstacle challenges. There's a lot to watch. This Love whatever, they're just talking just the whole time, and somebody gets eliminated. I don't understand
Love
the concept
Island
of the show.
is on every night.
Oh, is it? Is it okay?
What does that? How? What?
That's what its thing is. It's every
So
night.
is it like a Big Brother? Is this like a daily show?
I don't know much more about it.
Okay.
But it is daily.
They were.
Do they meet at the bar every night to watch this fucking show?
I don't
That's
know.
what I-
Maybe
yeah,
this
I
was
don't know.
a
I
special
didn't-
finale or something.
I don't know what the schedule looks like, but like the people who were there to watch that were really into it. They're like gasps, and again, nothing is happening. I don't know what the reaction is, but like they're like, I can't believe that person got eliminated. No, this person. It was very confusing.
Did you go find another bar so that you could have
No,
the...
I was like, once the injury happened, there was a nice Achilles tear. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah,
You
and,
sent it to
You
us.
sent it to us?
And then, so I stayed to watch. I was like, I didn't feel like finding another bar, and then I went back home once the game was over. But good to know going forward if there's any sort of. I'll have to look at the TV guide to see what other show
people
is
are
on.
into Love Island.
Oh, that's weird. What's the gimmick of the Love Island?
I don't know. It's on all the time. I don't know.
Everybody like
I
it
think
seems like it's like
nothing.
a communal bed area. Like everybody just sleeps in like one. It's like almost like a dorm style kind of setup. I don't get the. I didn't see an island.
What's the gimmick of
Maybe
the
I'm
television
wrong.
show Love Island?
The main gimmick of the television show Love Island is putting a group of single, attractive people in a luxurious villa on a secluded island, where they must asterisk couple up romantically to avoid being eliminated and dumped from the island. Here's a breakdown of the key elements that make up the show's gimmick. Coupling and recoupling islanders initially couple up based on first impressions. Throughout the season, there are recoupling ceremonies.
All right. Apparently, you get the boot if you're single after a recoupling ceremony.
Asked and answered.
There you go. Oh boy, it must be a popular show. I don't know.
So was it? It was
was
almost all
British.
women there at this.
It was again. It was like I was like, I don't know what's going on. It wasn't so much the
Did they
number
think
of
you were
women.
there like trawling for strange? Like,
No.
look, is this what?
Sitting there drinking my Tropicalia, just watching this game, and I don't know. It was very interesting. It was just weird, but yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds like fun. I wish the
on,
Pacers had won. I would have won like $350 or something.
Oh no, too bad.
Yeah, it's too bad. A good weekend otherwise?
Yes, on Saturday, me and some friends, we went up to North Georgia. We did this tubing on the Chattahoochee River, and the place where we met was in Helen, Georgia. And
Yeah.
speaking
Yes.
of gimmicks, they have some sort of a German gimmick
Yes,
up there.
Alpine Helen.
Yeah, they do this whole thing.
This
I saw
is great.
like German flags. I was like, "What's going on?" And nice little town, but way too many people. I mean, we're just now entering the summer months, and we got there.
The hooch was crowded?
So we got there at like as soon as 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And
What's the scenario here? Do you drive somewhere and then they like stick you on a bus and then they bus you up to somewhere else so that your car is down at the landing, or do you have to figure out your own car situation?
that's how they should have set it up, but no, we parked at the start, and then we go down a couple of miles, like 2 hours worth of tubing, and then the bus takes you back up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it just
To the start.
different ways to do it.
But it would have been just me because there were just so many people. You had to like wait. It took like 40 minutes to get on an available bus to take you up there. I mean,
No,
there were
that sucks. Especially because like you've been on the
You're
fucking
hot.
river, you're fucking
Yeah.
high, or you're fucking drunk or what have you, and now you got to stand around and wait for an hour and you're wet and hot.
Yes, it was. And then there was like, hey, let's go all because it was like I don't know. Basically, it was like 10 people, and like everybody brought 4 sets of like parents and their kids and me. I'm like, I'll show up. I'm not responsible for anything. And they were like, hey, let's go have lunch right after. But it just took too long, and it was
Everything
like
takes too long. It's too many people.
It's like 2.5 hours of drive back to Atlanta. It normally would take you about an hour and change, but traffic was just so bad up there. Everybody had the same idea, I guess. Like it stopped raining, and it was a nice weekend in the morning, and everybody just went up
Oh
to
yeah, the river
Helen.
was extra high, I'm sure.
Yes. Oh, by the way, this is okay. whenever I'm out and about, depending on the situation, I can always count on a few things. If I go out to
for example, stumbling upon a random Lilith Fair bar instead of a sports bar.
Anytime I go out there, either a football game, a soccer game, a Braves game, there's always somebody in a walk-in boot. Like, I don't know why. Like, maybe people just don't cancel plans when something goes wrong with their leg. I always see one person at least with a walk-in boot.
Okay.
If there's a place where there's music, there's always a disco ball. And anytime I'm by a body of water, there's always someone who can't swim. Like, I don't understand. Like, I was at this river thing, and we're basically coming to the end, and everybody's kind of like waiting to get off. And I have my little paddle, which was a very handy thing because there were a few places where you needed the paddle to kind of get out of some rocks. I'm like, I noticed that this is a very deep part of the river. And I just kind of casually mentioned it to somebody next to me.
You noticed it by, you tried to plumb the bottom of the river and you can't reach it?
And nothing doing. Yeah. And I just kind of casually mentioned this this person next to me, and she's like, "Oh my God, I don't know how to swim. Thank you for telling me that." I was like,
"Did she have a life jacket on?"
She had a life jacket on, but I was like,
"Okay."
I mean, she was like, my age. Like, I was like, "What's going on?" Like,
it's a funny thing that there's a lot of people who just don't know how to swim. They're just never taught. They never learned how to swim.
But you think you get around to it? Just go to like some pool.
When did you learn how to swim?
When did you learn?
When I was, I don't know, like when I was a little kid, and also like in Canada, it was like a required class. You had to know how to swim.
What fucking weirdo commie bullshit is that?
But I already knew how to swim by then. It was like, I don't know. But like...
there's a college here in Virginia, Washington and Lee. In order to graduate, you have to do a lap down and back in the pool.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty fucking ableist to me.
I'm sure you can get a waiver if you're not able. But like...
I mean,
without
literally
that,
anyone who can't do it is not able.
No, you need because they offer swimming as a class.
Yeah.
Like they want, if you're going to go out into the world, you should be able to swim.
The planet is mostly water. I don't understand. Like,
oh yeah? Is that your?
Tell us more about the planet and the humans.
Anyway, if I didn't know how to swim, I'm not trusting this stupid life vest.
Aren't you the one who's talking about us being a land-based animal? And
yes, we are. But like most major cities are by some body of water. You got to be able to swim.
In case what happens? I mean, I think generally speaking, the human can avoid.
In case you go tubing.
So I went to see this movie 28 years later, whatever. It's like a sequel to the zombie outbreak in the UK, and they quarantined the island. So like swimming would have helped, like at the beginning, to get on the other side.
Well, but then everyone would have gotten zombied.
Yeah, so is that true. I guess we'll talk about the movie at the end here. We don't have to go into that now.
Talk about war now.
Yeah, we should probably talk about what's going on there in the Middle East. Let's see here. What is the correct in here? A couple of days since this has happened, because what was this? Saturday night, right?
Saturday night.
Yeah.
Trump decided to do the thing.
And the announcement was on social media. I mean, the way information gets out now is kind of weird. Like he posts on Truth Social.
Yeah.
And that's how the news breaks.
Well, and Israel had already, it was a couple months ago, basically, Israel had established basically complete air superiority over Iran by taking out the vast majority of their air defenses, right? So Israel had established air superiority over Iran and was in a position for the last little while of perhaps being able to deliver some sort of, if not quite fatal blow to Iran's nuclear ambitions, then at the very least a destabilizing blow to Iran's nuclear ambitions. And the question that had come up, especially in the last couple of weeks, was, is the United States going to be able to help or be willing to help Israel deliver that blow to Iran's potential nuclear capability? And it wasn't clear, right? Trump sort of went back and forth on it, and then he gave his statement about how we will decide at some point in the next 2 weeks.
The magical 2 weeks.
Back to that 2 weeks thing. The funny thing about Trump and the 2 weeks thing is that it's a very, like in my head, it's the way that contractors operate, like from the movie The Money Pit. Have you seen The Money Pit, Abe, with Tom Hanks?
I don't recall.
I want to say 1988. I'm good at this. I'm just going to say off the top of my head, Money Pit is 1988. Now I will Google it up. Damn it. It's 1986.
Look at that.
The Money Pit was 1986, and it's Tom Hanks and
A woman.
a blonde
From Cheers? Is
from
that the
Cheers. Exactly correct.
one? Wow.
It's
Diane.
Wait, shut up.
Shelley Long.
I was.
How did you know? If you have never seen The Money Pit, and I said Tom Hanks and the blonde, and yet somehow you knew.
I don't know how just information is stored weirdly in my head.
Anyway, I always liked The Money Pit. I don't know. I saw it as a child and thought it was a pretty funny movie. But in The Money Pit, this is a couple. They romantically buy. They're freshly married, I think. They buy this house. She's some sort of like musician, I think, and some
Successful
sort of artist.
one or just like a
I think she
struggling
plays
artist?
the fucking cello or violin or something like
Okay.
that. And so there's some jealousy issues, like between Hanks is worried that she's like sleeping with the conductor or something like that. I don't know. It's very silly, but they buy this big old house, this mansion that's a fixer-upper, and they're going to put a bunch of time and money into fixing up the house. And Tom Hanks hires the contractors to do it, and slowly the marriage falls apart as the difficulties with renovating the house continue to mount. And like one of the final scenes in the movie is the house is finally fucking finished, and they are getting divorced. That's sort of how it. I think they end up reconciling. It was totally fine, but the contractor throughout the nightmare renovation project is always telling Tom Hanks and Shelley Long 2 weeks that the plumbing will be done in 2 weeks, the electricity will be done in 2 weeks. So
How long do you think all that'll take?
2 weeks.
Really? Yeah, that's all.
Any idea when you're going to be finished here?
2 weeks.
How long will it take to put this place together?
2 weeks. I do get the permits. How long will the job take? 2 weeks. 2 weeks? 2 weeks? You sound like a parakeet there. 2 weeks? 2 weeks?
sort of a real estate contractor type of mindset there, and it transferring to Donald Trump and him always talking about how in 2 weeks we'll have it for you. Don't worry.
You think he's seen the Money Pit?
Do I think Donald Trump has seen the Money Pit? Probably not. That would be my guess.
I don't think he's seen any movies.
I don't think he watches movies.
That's right. I don't think he has you're right. Doesn't seem like a movie guy. I mean, he's been in movies, that Home Alone 2 or...
Can you imagine that man sitting down? This is how inhuman he is to me, right? Is that I can't even imagine that he has the capacity to sit down and watch a film. Like television is worth watching because that's what's happening now, right?
And there's a chance that his name will be brought up in a movie. His name is going to be brought up.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that the chances that that makes me want to scour his Twitter feed for like capsule movie reviews. But like if there were a lot of them, like we would have heard about them by now.
What if he takes a strong liking to Ana de Armas? You have that commonality, like, oh, this guy's not that bad.
That's everybody, though.
Yeah, maybe.
What if Donald Trump took a strong liking to Ana de Armas? Spectacular.
What then?
I'd have to chop my balls off. I think Abe is what I see where you're going, and yeah, castration would be my only viable option. Anyway, we weren't sure what the American president was going to do in terms of deployment of American force to help Israel in this war that they'd started against Iran. They did some more cool fucking James Bond shit where, like, because remember the pager attacks, which I know, don't talk about how cool violent fucking war shit is. But also, if you have a like fucking 15 or 20 year long plan that includes the creation of like manufacturing assets and whole supply chains so that you can build pagers that you then put in the pockets of fucking Hezbollah and then you blow them all up all at once. That fucking rules.
Right.
And you kill a bunch of the bad guys and maim a bunch of the bad guys and have like just an impossibly minimal amount of civilian casualty relative to the amount of violence done to what's effectively like a guerrilla force, right? Like a notoriously difficult thing to do is to kill the bad guys who were embedded in civilian populations without massive civilian casualties as well. They came up with a fucking insane plan to make that happen, and they pulled it off, and it was fucking very cool. Similarly, though not quite as like spectacularly cinematically amazing, apparently they had drone factories that they like built in Iran, right? Like they opened the garage doors on secret drone sites within the country of Iran, out of which then flew Israeli drones, right? And that then did damage to Iranian military infrastructure. Like just fucking insane shit that they've been able to pull off by playing the extremely long game. And if you were anti-Semitic or leaned in that direction, you might think things, oh, those fucking sneaky Jews are at it again, right? Like, why are they so good at this? It's
you hear stories about how like there are Mossad agents like infiltrated in the Iranian system, like where they have intelligence, where they know exactly what Iran is doing and where they're going to do it and things like that. I don't know how long they've been developing these sources inside of Iran, but
it helps, and this is a crucial point, that the Iranian revolutionary regime is not a popular one among the people over which they rule. It's hard to get, of course, clean data in terms of polling of how popular they are because, A, when you live under a repressive, authoritarian, despotic, theocratic regime, you don't always get a true response when you ask how you feel about that particular group of leaders. And, so you don't get good polling from inside, but it seems like there's a reason to believe that like half or more of the people of Iran are not terribly pleased with their governing situation there.
Right.
And that given that unpopularity, it's not terribly surprising that you would be able to have infiltrators, be they Mossad agents or anything else.
Right.
The bottom line here was that Israel needed the sorts of bombs that only the United States has, and bombs that, in fact, had never been really tried before. These they call them massive ordnance penetrators or something like that. Right. Bunker buster, massive ordnance penetrator. It's obviously also what I've long called my dick.
It's true.
But I mean, look, when Judy Woodruff on the PBS NewsHour says massive ordnance penetrator and you don't,
you get sprung.
And you don't go full fucking Sir Mix-a-Lot, you're not a red-blooded American male the way some of us are. Anyway.
This weapon is it penetrates and then it detonates, right? So it's not like it's not all happening at once.
That's how it works.
Yeah, just like
penetrates to a depth of hundreds of feet, though.
Not the same. That's where the differences are.
Like 200 feet of solid rock, it goes down and then it explodes. So it happened. Bottom line, the United States was like, yes, we're going to do this thing, and this became obviously quite a large story because we haven't done anything quite like this in terms of helping. Hey, we've always given Israel plenty of help. We've been willing to sell them all sorts of things and help them develop all sorts of other things. But getting directly involved in this way is a step in a new direction and potentially a quite dangerous one for American interests abroad. Certainly, it seems less likely that we would be the victims of some sort of major retaliatory attack in terms of a military strike by Iran here in the homeland, which is not to dismiss the possibility that is the sleeper cell type of possibility, right? That
Right.
or the lone wolf acting on behalf of the Iranian regime might carry out some asymmetric warfare, right? Do some terror attack here at home, which wouldn't be terribly surprising.
Right, and it may not even be like at the behest of Iran. Like there could be some people that just don't like, the U.S. and Israel. So like there could be somebody that may be inspired to take some action. But I do wonder if the assessment or the decision to go ahead and strike, the reason behind that is maybe they determined that Iran is much weaker than they initially thought. Like, if they were to attack them, Iran wasn't going to really do much. And basically that kind of has proven out. I mean, right now I think there was like some coordinated retaliatory strike on a base where they gave the heads up to the United States, to where like we need to kind of save face and
in
attack
Qatar,
you.
right?
Yeah, Qatar. Yeah, so
Very similar to what happened after we assassinated Soleimani,
right,
in Iraq. After that happened, Iran was like, "Hey, we're gonna fuck some shit up," and then they told us what they were going to fuck up. I think like they gave us something of a heads up,
right.
And then the worst of it was just like some dudes had their bells rung basically while they were asleep.
That's right. And I think this time it's not even that. I mean, it's early days, but I don't think there's going to be like traumatic brain injuries or anything resulting from this. But I do wonder if the reason why Iran did this response to say like we need to respond and then we can just move on is because they're so weak, or if they're still assessing the damage and they're like, maybe this has just set us back a couple of years and this did not destroy our entire operation, right? So that part is still not clear, because from what the president said, it was like, total obliteration, and then some of the other assessments,
the greatest obliteration that's ever happened.
Right, and then other people were saying severe damage. I mean, some of the language being used, it's not clear. Like, does this set Iran back forever, or does it set them back a couple of years? Because if it's a couple of years, that may not change the calculation for Iran. They're like, okay, we'll just regroup and try again some other time, and buy some time by like not retaliating to the point where the U.S. has to then come over the top and do some sort of regime change. Maybe they're thinking like, let's just survive the moment. It's not as bad as we thought, and we can move on. Or they're just so weak they're just trying to save themselves for the time being.
I mean, I'm not sure that it matters whether or not it was a serious blow to their nuclear ambitions as to what this response would be, right? So whether it sets them back just a couple of years or whether it sets them back a decade, why does that have any bearing on what their move would be here in terms of saving face? I mean, I think for the most part, their best bet is to put their heads down and just hope that the Iranian people don't revolt against them, right? Like that their weakness is not perceived as so pervasive within their own borders that they don't provoke a response from their people.
Right.
I mean, we won't really have, right, as you're saying, according to Trump, this was the greatest attack on a foreign country in the history of the world. I did want to play, if I can find it here, a clip from the end of his speech on Saturday night, which I turned on. I think he went live at like 10:02 or something on Saturday night, and I don't think it went on for more than 5 minutes. It was like him and
very quick. And also, again, it's weird. I mentioned it to you guys, but like it was weird how he had the principals in the background. This is like one of those kind of events where the president themselves will just come out and say something. My fellow Americans, blah, 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 blah. That did not happen.
The White House YouTube video of it is only 4 minutes and 13 seconds long, and it includes the walk-up.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise.
I'll skip to the end. It is always funny, though, when he says a word that he's like not familiar with, and he's always, the way he says it, and he shakes his whole body and his shoulders get moving.
That body twitch is always amusing.
So pleased with himself when he says a big word.
Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
I have to play it again.
He played it like 4 times.
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God.
I just want to thank, in particular, God. We love you, God.
In particular, God.
What a deeply strange human being.
There's no way that was in the transcript, right? Like, that's just like him going off the cuff.
No, that was not written down ahead of time.
But the way it was written was probably like more, like God bless the troops or whatever.
He's such a weird person. And it's weird enough for me to not get too mad that like part of what makes me okay with the whole thing to some extent is we were sort of fighting against a theocratic regime, right? Like this is the people of Iran are ruled by this despotic bunch of mullahs, these theocrats, and I don't like it when the American president or any American politician invokes God in opposition to these fucking assholes.
Right.
Because it just clearly if you're doing that, you're playing into the religious warfare thing that they're always going on about, and that's not what we should be doing here, to be clear. I've written and ranted at length about people giving the God Bless America stuff at the end of speeches about despotic theocrats, right? Just don't do it. Now is not the time. Don't put us on a religious war footing with these fucking people. But also, this is fucking hilarious, and I'm fine with it.
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God.
The ability of Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance to look on with serious face when he says, and I just want to say, we want to thank, in particular, God.
Yeah.
I want to thank, in particular, God. It's like he's singling out the person who's hosting the dinner party or something, right?
Is that not what God is doing for you?
It's that level of he's just a magnanimous dude giving a speech at a fundraising party or something, And I want to thank, in particular, our hosts tonight. That's the language that he's pulling from, and instead he's talking about God.
Why does J.D. Vance make that face? He always has that almost concerned look. I don't know. I think that's his default face, but he needs to maybe clean that up.
Yeah. Anyway, is it bad that Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran?
That old Beach Boys song, "Bomb Iran." Bomb Iran.
The concern is that this directive and action could draw the American military into a Middle Eastern kind of conflict. There's all this concern about World War III and at least in the Middle East, some broader conflict and maybe having the actual boots on the ground in Iran. By the way, the terrain of Iran is well built to where it's not ideal to invade that country. The way all the mountains are set up, it's pretty well fortified the way it's set up. But based on my read of things, this seems to be Iran is too weak to do anything about it, and there's no appetite on the American side to go further, and it seems like Israel is satisfied, and so maybe things will kind of cool down now. Everybody kind of got what they wanted out of this exercise, and maybe down the road something bad will happen, but for the time being it seems like this was a calculated risk, but the threat of Iran is very diminished based on all that I'm seeing. There's not much that they can do. Their proxies are kind of out of sorts. If you look at it from
because their proxies have been fucked up by Israel ever since October 7th.
And speaking of which, if you were to look at it from their vantage point, there's been all this talk about how Iran funds a lot of these operations across the Middle East, and they had some financial role to play with the October attacks on Israel. So, like, if you were to look at it from October of 23, right?
Right.
To now, like, all the things that was in Iran's interest have been decimated. Like, basically, they look much weaker. They have no control over their air. They can't really respond to any of the attacks, either from Israel or the U.S. All their proxies are either totally diminished or just kind of they're in a bad way. Like, nothing good has happened for them since that attack. So it's like, what was the upside? I'm wondering what was planned.
I think that might be part of the problem with having proxies like Hamas, where Hamas is going to do whatever the fuck Hamas wants to do ultimately.
Do you think that decision was not something that Iran was in support of?
I don't know that. I don't. Obviously, I have no idea. But I don't. Did Iran have a veto on whether or not Hamas was going to pull that off?
That's not clear.
I have no way of knowing. Of course, Hamas would not be what Hamas has been without Iranian support, and the same goes for Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis. Is it? So I will say the following: caveat the usual. It is to my preference that we not have a president who can just decide to take that sort of gamble by himself, right? Like, it would be better if we didn't live under that sort of a system. But the fact of the matter is, for the last fucking 40 years, the War Powers Act, be damned, the president is going to do whatever the president wants to do when it comes to this stuff. And we are not in a situation where it is realistic to expect Donald Trump to go to Congress and say, hey, I would like explicit congressional authority to bomb Iran if I think it's going to be in the best interest of stopping nuclear proliferation and keeping them from getting the bomb in relatively short order.
Right.
And then, because first of all, I mean, in some way, one can imagine that, now we've lost the element of surprise. But, realistically, there's no element of surprise here. And it didn't really matter, right? Right. They knew that they lacked the air defenses necessary to keep their nuclear sites safe. And in all likelihood, if they were able to transport large caches of enriched uranium away from those sites, then they would have already done it, whether or not it was in the news that Donald Trump was asking Congress for the authority to bomb the shit out of them, right? So in this particular situation, I'm not sure that the element of surprise ultimately would have mattered much one way or another. And also, in one of the write-ups about this operation that I saw, various anonymous military people at the Pentagon are quoted saying, the biggest threat to operational security is Donald Trump. And this is in a world where Pete Hegseth is on Signal telling Jeffrey Goldberg about war plans. Somehow Donald Trump's Twitter finger is the larger threat to OPSEC than even that fucking idiot Pete Hegseth is. Because Trump will get on Truth Social and just be like, I don't know, will I or won't I take on Iran here and bomb the fuck out of them? Stay tuned! 5 exclamation marks. Big news coming. That's how fucking stupid this motherfucker is about this stuff. So, yes, clearly it would be to my preference that the president did not have or did not take this sort of liberties with American military might. But that's not the world that we've lived in for a very long time. And in bullshit, legalistic ways, the authorization for the use of military force from 2001, 2002, or 2003, whenever the last one was passed, still holds, right? And the language is broad enough that he can basically do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And I wish that weren't the case. But Congress long ago ceded this authority. And what happens when you put people who might make potentially rash or bad decisions in the presidency, then they get to make potentially bad or rash decisions. And like we used to complain about, or I used to complain about with Obama and the drone wars, like, okay, imagine Obama has a kill list, but you trust Barack Obama to only deploy American military might in a just way, because this is the man who says that the long arc of history bends towards justice, after
I
all.
mostly trust him to not have a kill list.
Well, he had one. So the people who are more forgiving of Obama's foreign wars and drone wars would have said, well, but he's the philosopher king. He's who we've put in charge here to make these sorts of decisions. And it's like, well, think fucking 5 minutes into the future.
Yeah.
And somebody bad who you don't like is going to be in charge. Do Republicans really want you can't even name who the future of the Democratic Party might be at this point.
Stephen A. Smith.
Right. Do you want Stephen A. Smith or Kamala Harris to have this sort of wide presidential authority? No, of course you don't. And if you're a Democrat, do you want Donald Trump to have this sort of wide latitude? No, of course you don't. So, caveating all of that the system is bad and it would be better if the president did not have this or take this sort of authority and action, is it entirely wrong of me to be like, maybe it's good that Iran's nuclear capabilities have been perhaps meaningfully retarded in some way because of this operation, and that it is a gamble that was worth taking? And like, I'm speaking literally as someone. I have my brother is currently in fucking Jordan at an American army base in Jordan. Like someone, deployed out there in the Middle East now, potentially with a target.
Total coincidence, by the way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But like, to me, this isn't so bad. Like it's right. And the thing that put the nail in the coffin for me, even if we don't, because we won't know, in all likelihood, we won't know for a little while how meaningfully degraded are Iran's capabilities here in terms of their progress towards a bomb. Dmitry Medvedev, the former president, like the interim president in Russia, while they were sorting out how to make Putin president for life, and then they were just like, fuck it, we'll just make Putin president for life. We don't have to figure it out. And still a second-hand or right-hand man to Putin there in Russia, said on somewhere, I don't know if he tweeted it, quote, the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. A number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. Now that phrase, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue, kind of puts a lie to everything that we've been hearing out of Iran for the last decade, right? With the JCPOA, the Iranian nuclear deal, as it was called, the idea there being, in theory, that this deal was struck so that Iran would not be permitted to get a nuclear bomb anytime soon, right? Like you can only enrich uranium to this amount, right?
Right.
And what Medvedev is saying on Twitter, unless I'm completely misinterpreting things, is, look, for years we've all been playing coy about what's really going on in Iran, but the fact of the matter is, as everyone knows, they've been working towards a bomb for a very long time, and that work is going to continue apace, and that this action by the United States won't have done anything to retard that pace. Am I missing something, or does that seem to be what Medvedev is saying there?
I mean, Medvedev has always, he seems like he's like constantly like inebriated. Just based on the way he communicates his information, it just sounds like he's just a belligerent. So I don't know how accurate he is with his statements. If he's just kind of just saying things just to say them. I don't know if. Like,
but he's also saying things that are everyone sort of understood to be true about the nuclear deal, about the JCPOA,
right.
Which is that it was a bogus Band-Aid over saying, look, we don't want you to get it too soon, but like realistically, you're going to you're going to keep enriching this uranium, and we're willing to put up with it. And here, have some money as long as you at least pretend to be going about this process slowly, right? And that's what he's getting at there. Is like,
right, but based on the experience by Iran, like if you look at another country, North Korea, right? Nobody's bombing North Korea. They have the nuclear weapon, and the Kim Jong-un can live happy, and his next of kin can take over, and that country will be around forever. Like this experience, this humiliating experience for Iran, I would imagine would make them more likely to pursue something that they may be already pursuing, based on Medvedev and some other intelligence. Like maybe this is inevitable eventually. Maybe in the next 10 years, they're going to get the nuclear weapon because they're like, this is our only way to deter these much stronger countries from attacking us. The threat of a nuclear retaliation is the only path we have forward, right? Because like, what did this accomplish other than just to prove how weak Iran is without the bomb, right? So I would imagine that this makes it more likely that they will pursue this weapon.
But they were pursuing anyway. This is
right,
the thing
that
this is like. They were already attempting to sprint towards the bomb as best they could, and they will continue to do so, except now we've destroyed, apparently, a significant amount of their capacity to do so, including the killing of many fucking nuclear scientists who are in the process of trying to help make this happen. They were already trying to get the bomb, bombing the shit out of them and making it like the physical infrastructure, destroying the physical infrastructure that they're using in their pursuit of the bomb isn't going to somehow expedite their ability to get the fucking bomb. Right? Like that's fucking retarded, to use a word that I've said twice here in non-offensive ways so far. I mean, again, like maybe I can see them in an attempt to, I don't know. I just don't see how this is anything but, and again, acknowledging all of the risks that come with taking this sort of action against a state like Iran. Like, I don't see how it's a bad thing that we will have meaningfully degraded their capacity to get the bomb. I don't know. Like I get that it's rash. I get that it is potentially dangerous. But again, with the Soleimani thing as the most recent example of how do they respond to a direct humiliation, and that response being fairly minimal, I don't know. It doesn't seem all that bad.
Yeah. The only drawback, I think you're right. It is a positive development to, if anything, delay this by a few years, and then you can kind of regroup and maybe bomb them again in 5 years or whatever. But like that part is positive. But just usually countries don't deal with humiliation very well. So like this is just gonna redouble their desire to be a hostile nation. I don't think they're going to be like, all right, let's just fucking open it up and open up ourselves to tourism and just kind of change course and just be
but I also have to say that like relative to what we've been hearing out of Israel the last week about like we should probably just assassinate the leader of Iran, and now that dude's in hiding and nobody knows where he is. He's like fucking 86 years old or something too, I think. He's quite old. But like to have public officials in Israel, like not Netanyahu in particular, but like people, high-profile Israelis willing to say we should just assassinate the leader of this country and that would be to the good. Like, to me, this is a much more reasonable and acceptable step than just going out and assassinating the leader of the country.
Also, like, what is then gonna fill that void? Do they think, oh, you just killed our head guy, that's it? Like, I'm sure they have a process in place. Oh, God ordained this next guy to be the new guy, and the whole thing would continue. Like, what would it accomplish to kill their head of state or their leader?
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, I think this is worth mentioning, should probably just go ahead and resign.
I'm shocked she has not. Maybe by next Easter she'll be gone, but like, I'm surprised she is still there after being thrown under the bus in the way that Trump threw her. Like, just like she didn't know what she was talking about, or she's wrong.
To sum up, Tulsi Gabbard said, as Director of National Intelligence, we don't think that Iran is terribly close to getting a bomb anytime soon. And I would dispute the Israeli intelligence that insists that they are closer than we previously thought, to which Donald Trump basically said, I don't care what you think, and I think that you're wrong. She should probably just quit.
Like, what's the next step for her? Like, how can she credibly make any, because if she goes before Congress in the near future about anything related with intelligence, this will come up, you know? And how's she going to get around it? You would think she would have just resigned by now.
Yeah.
Also, what did you make of the that nuclear bomb video that she came out with? Like, you know, like let's not get into a devastating war or something. She had like some weird video.
Did she tweet something about a?
Yeah, she tweeted something, and I think it was deleted pretty quickly. But it was like some weird, like, hey.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Anything else on a potentially World War III here before we move on to something else?
By the way, the formula for a world war is either two major countries going at it, or like duty-bound countries joining the war. Like, if, you know, this country gets attacked, then we have to join forces, and then the other side has some duty-bound country joining forces. There wasn't anything like that at play here. Like, Iran wasn't going to get any help from Russia. They're occupied with the war themselves, right? China wasn't going to do anything. So, like, there was never really a chance for a world war kind of situation with Iran because they're not a major country. So, as it stands now, the chances of a worldwide war is pretty remote.
What do you think explains Trump's willingness to do this, given everything else? Like, given his disinterest in pursuing a defense of Ukraine in any meaningful way, and his seemingly being on the other side a lot of the time when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine stuff, given his insistence that he wouldn't, you know, you'd never start another war, that he's not a wartime president. He prefers peace. He's a great lover of peace. Right. He wouldn't get us, you know, his whole thing is that, you know, George W. Bush is an idiot for going into Iraq, and all of these Mideast wars have been a terrible mistake. It is not surprising to me at all that MAGA comes around and says, we're just here to support whatever the president ultimately does here. But, like, what explains his willingness to do this? And is it just sort of like because it's a big and awesome thing to drop a dozen of these massive ordnance penetrators on the Iranian desert there and blow some shit up? And it's like a one and done thing, and like it was probably presented to him in that way. Like, look, just do this, and you won't have to do anything else, and you're not going to kill a bunch of people, really. Like, you know, maybe probably knock off some nuclear scientists or what have you, but like we're just going after infrastructure here, and Bibi says that it's going to be great, so let's just do it. Like
I think that the pitch must have been something along those lines where this attack is narrow in scope. There's no chance for a mission creep kind of situation. The Israelis have put Iran on the ropes, you know, so you're kind of kicking somebody when they're down anyways, right? So they're already kind of weakened, and so the chances of them retaliating in any sort of strong way is lessened thanks to the weapons provided and Israel's know-how, like with their intelligence gathering. Like, maybe just all of that was like, hey, this is a one-off, and then you can, you know, sue for peace afterwards and maybe, you know, get credit for whatever comes next. But like, it must have been explained to him in that way, and that because I think his main thing is like he didn't want to get bogged down into some war that he has no control over. And so since that's not something that's going to happen in Iran, they're like, okay, yeah, let's go bomb them and be done with it.
Yeah. It is potentially the most significant thing that he will have done in a positive way in either presidency. Like, I don't want to overstate it here, but if in fact it is the case, if it turns out that the bombing of these three sites meaningfully degraded Iran's capability of working towards a nuclear bomb, and that if at some point in the next couple of years, if no further action was taken by the United States and Israel, then Iran would have gotten the bomb. then this is like the single greatest act of nuclear non-proliferation that you can sort of imagine, right? Like what is bigger than this, than in keeping this millenarian death cult that runs this country of 95 million people from having a bomb. Like it's a spectacularly good thing for the world order that Iran does not have the bomb at this moment. And at every moment that you push further back and further away the possibility that they could have come into possession of said bomb, given like it's because at some point the thing that drives me nuts about the apologists for the Iranian regime or any other relatively powerless regime in terms of relative power to like the United States or France or the UK or whatever, is how unseriously we take their sincerely held and expressed beliefs about the world, right? For 45 years, Iran has said death to Israel, death to America, right? And that they would do everything in their power to wipe us off the face of the planet. And I don't think there's a ton of – I don't think that it is crazy to imagine that if Iran had the bomb and had the capacity to deliver it to Israel, that they might actually use it, right? Like they have said over and over and over and over again that they would do just that. Right? It's what they keep saying over and over and over again. And at some point, I think you have to take seriously the possibility that they mean what they say. And like if you're going to talk that way, you must be sort of willing to accept the consequences of that talk. Not when it's just empty talk, right? You're not actually pursuing this weapon. But if in fact you're saying we are pursuing this weapon and also death to America and death to Israel, and you are making meaningful progress toward the acquisition of that weapon, then we should probably be taking you seriously, right? And maybe I'm pushing back against straw men here. Maybe I'm pushing back. There's not, in fact, a lot of people who are worried about this having extremely negative consequences, or that this was, in fact, a bad thing. But like anyone with any amount of understanding of what this Iranian regime has been for more than our entire lives at this point, it's hard for me to imagine that if you take them seriously, that you could say that this is anything but a potentially a good thing if what has been done has actually been done.
This the way that I see it is, I think obviously the rhetoric is there, right? And so sometimes you got to take things at face value, death to the two countries and whatnot. But the way that I read Iran is that they want the weapon so that they can permanently cement this regime.
But how has the
forever.
regime been threatened in any meaningful way at any point over the last 40 fucking years? I mean, it hasn't. As you say, they are not particularly subject to invasion.
Right.
They are the bullies of the entire region and have been for a very long time. They deploy their vast amount of wealth that they have, not largely for the benefit of their population, but in order to deploy terror around the region and around the world. That is what they have spent their money on for much of the last 2 generations. And with very little meaningful threat to their ongoing existence until like the last 2 weeks, right? At no point has Israel really been in danger of being able to take, because they cannot invade, right? Like, yes, they've established air superiority, but also they're not even fucking neighbors, right? You look at the map.
Go through Iraq, yeah.
And they're not even fucking neighbors there. And it's a formulation that you've heard many times before, but I think is basically true, and you can do with it what you will. If Israel suddenly found itself defenseless and there would be no meaningful consequences to the Iranian regime if they destroyed Israel, I think that tomorrow Iran would destroy Israel. And the same is simply not true in reverse, that if Israel could simply destroy Iran, and I'm not just talking, I mean, I'm talking about Iran wiping out the 9 or 10 million people or whatever it is that Muslims and Jews alike. They would happily wipe them off the face of the planet tomorrow if that were a possibility, and they didn't have to suffer any consequences. And I don't think that is there's no moral equivalency, or there's no equivalency on the other side where Israel would do the same thing given the same opportunity.
I have to go to bed now.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Laura.
Good night.
I was going to say that this is not something that I would want to risk to find out, but I think if Iran had the opportunity to destroy Israel, they would, but not through nuclear weapons, because that is mutually assured destruction to do so. I still do think that there is a rational actor in Iran. Based on the way that they behave, obviously they want to destroy Israel. That
right.
is
No, I set it up as a ludicrous hypothetical for a reason, because yes, I recognize that there is a mutually assured destruction element going on there, but from an ideological perspective, from a fundamentalist Islam perspective, I feel like we've become we don't take seriously the things that other people believe because we no longer believe things in the same way that these people believe things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's simply nothing in the American character that relates to the way that true believers in the Muslim world have, right? I mean, I don't mean that there aren't religious fanatics here. That is not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying the widespread American character, we don't have that sort of fundamentalist, millenarian, apocalyptic understanding of the world. You can go on YouTube or see news clips of mothers of dead children weeping with joy that their children are dead, right? Like they truly believe that this is a shadow world of the paradise to come. And yes, in very much the same way that fundamentalist Christians believe that they're going to live forever on the other side. But there's not, within fundamentalist Christianity, at least the way that it has been exposed to me in my life, there's not a sort of contempt for this world or a disdain for this realm of existence in the way that often comes across when you're talking about the paradise to come from the Muslim ideology, from that particular way of seeing things. There seems to be, and certainly among the fundamentalist types, a belief about this fallen world being a total shadow and waste of time compared to the paradise that is to come. And they mean it sincerely, right? They truly believe it in a way that most Americans simply don't believe those sorts of things, even if they profess to be Christian or what have you.
Right.
And like at some point, you have to take it seriously. And to be fair, I don't know how much nut picking is going on when you see a video of a woman talking about how wonderful it is that her children are dead now, right? Like I really don't know, because I cannot, when I see that, I lose the ability to identify with her humanity, right? Like I don't recognize in that person a human being who values life in the way that I do, right? Because she is celebrating the death of her own children, and I don't get it. Right. Like I simply, it is so far afield from everything that I have either come to believe or been taught about the sanctity of human life. Right. And I say sanctity without any sort of religious undertone there. Simply that I think that the individual, and this has been pounded into me as an American in our culture for as long as I've been alive, right? That the individual human being is, and that person's life, it matters a great deal, right? And that the violation of that life is a crime and a sin against the individual human dignity of that person. And when I listen to fundamentalist Muslims talk about life and death, it is from an entirely different perspective. Right. And that's not to say, like, I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe it is to say that there is some sort of fucking cultural loggerheads there that simply, I mean, you've always said that I know that you put it in sort of joking terms, but like wherever you find the Muslims, like it's an oil and water type of situation, right? Like I forget exactly how you expressed it.
Yeah, something along those lines. Because basically, at least from my vantage point, at least with Christians and other religions, it almost, I'm not trying to diminish other people's faith, but it always kind of felt like a part-time job, like a side thing. Like, we go to church on Sunday, and the rest of your life is mostly a secular existence. There isn't like a constant reminder of your faith that exists with the Muslim world, where 5 times a day you stop what you're doing to pray. Half of the population is wearing all of this clothing, to hide their body shape, their face, all this stuff. There are constant reminders. It is a immersive religious experience. Everything touches on religion, which is not to discredit the true believers in the Christian faith. To me, it just seems like it's just a side thing. On Wednesday, you do some Bible reading. After you win a football game, you talk up God, or after you bomb a country, you talk up God. But for the most part, it's indistinguishable from a secular person's existence. You go to a concert, do whatever. It's an entirely different thing. So everything connects to religion on the Muslim side. I will say, though, there are people who believe that. There are a lot of hardliners that believe this crazy stuff. Most people, it's been my experience, most people are pretty much the same. It doesn't matter where you are. They just want to go about their lives. I'm sure many Iranian people that are not getting interviewed in Iran, they just want to be left alone. They have, their world is small. It's just, their family, their friends, their network of friends. That's basically most people's world, right?
Right.
And so all this other stuff is, I would caution against thinking that one woman who, I did see that clip where she's like, the closest thing I can say is that this is some sort of coping mechanism, this bizarre coping mechanism to make sense of this chaotic world that she lives in, where her kids are getting blasted to death, to think that this is a grand design, right? Again, it's hard to connect to that way of thinking, but that's the closest thing I can come to, is that this is some sort of coping mechanism for her. But most people, they don't want to see their kids die. They don't want to die themselves. They just want to go about live their lives. And so I think
right. And I'm not trying to suggest that somehow the Muslim and the human cannot peacefully coexist on the long term, but also the justification for the Iranian regime, for the Islamic State, for any of these fundamentalist Muslim groups that seek violent means and ends is religious, right? And it doesn't mean that all true religionists have to believe the things that their most fervent adherents insist, right? Like there's some, no doubt, a great deal of pluralism and difference of understanding all throughout the faith. But there's just what I know for certain is that I prefer for people who espouse certainty about the ultimate truths of the universe to not have fucking nuclear bombs.
Right. Yeah, I think you don't want any more countries to have nuclear weapons. It's bad enough that so many countries already do. The 2 countries that you can question having nuclear weapons currently, North Korea, Pakistan, right? Pakistan is a Muslim country. They have a very deep-seated animosity towards their neighbors. In India, there haven't been any use of nuclear weapons there, right? I think the nuclear weapons are there to deter other countries from escalating to the point of no return. I think that's where people see it useful the most. Like, to use that sort of weapon against a rival nation would be the end of your country, right? And so that's why I think, like, even Iran, like, again, I don't want Iran to have nuclear capabilities. I don't see Russia giving them some of their nuclear capabilities to have like an ally in that region, like, because they probably don't trust them in that way. There is no upside to Iran having nuclear weapons, but if worse came to worse, I don't think they would use it. They would use other conventional weapons to attack Israel, but they would not use a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. I did have a thought. It was, I forget what I was listening to, but somebody said something about how because they were touching on this humiliation thing, the aspect of how Iran is going to be humiliated by what happened here, and the person said something about how the thing that a lot of Muslims believe is that Muhammad was right and the proof was in the pudding, basically, that the success of the Muslim religion to spread itself as an empire over the last 1,000 years or whatever it is proves its divine correctness, basically, that somehow the spread of this religion and the fact that Muhammad was able to take over as much as he did, basically the successful spread of Islam throughout the world and the various governments that have run various countries for long amounts of time prove the inherent truth of the religion itself, right? That success proves the thesis,
Right.
essentially.
Proof positive of, yeah, right.
So a failure like this, to be humiliated by the Jew, worst of all, but also to be humiliated by America in this way, must be proof of disfavor in some way, right? That this will be a blow to the authority of the state and their relationship with God, because, well, if they were correct, then God would not allow such a thing to happen. So I remembered the thing that I was trying to reference here, which was a podcast by Sam Harris, Making Sense Podcast, episode number 422, Zionism and Jihadism. And I'm just going to play a clip from it here because, of course, the person making the point makes the point far more clearly than I could upon attempting to relay it. And he ends in this portion of the clip by saying that he doesn't think that there is an equivalent concept in Christianity and Judaism that he has identified in Islam. And the point that I am going to make on the other side of the clip, or the reason that I brought it up at all, was that I did see some sort of corollary or parallel between the two modes of thought, which is he's talking about how the geopolitical success of Islam led people to believe that they were right with God, essentially, that God smiled upon them, had shown them good favor because of their piety. And that is absolutely a thing that you see in Western modes of thought, specifically in the concept of the prosperity gospel, which is the point that I will make, again, on the other side of this clip.
The stories that are told about us in the Arab world and the stories that are told about us in the larger Muslim world are stories that have very little to do with us and a lot to do with how Arabs and Muslims understand what has happened to them. And it's a story that I could send people to a podcast episode of mine, because we really lay out the theological, lineage of 5 generations of theologians that produced Hamas. But this lineage begins in the middle of the 19th century with these Egyptian theologians or Syrian theologians who moved to Egypt. It begins in Egypt. And it begins in Egypt because Egypt comes under British rule in the middle of the 19th century. And the disparity, as the Ottoman Empire is imploding slowly, but everyone understands how weak it is. Once the British take over parts, once the French take over parts of this slowly collapsing empire, it's impossible to pretend that you can't see the gap in power between Islam and the Christian West. And that gap in power takes explaining. And for Muslim theologians, it takes a special kind of explaining, because Islam was born, it's the only monotheistic religion, born as a conquering empire. And so it's a monotheistic religion that very early on came to associate geopolitical power and success and extraordinary achievement with, as evidence, right, if there is a God, and then God oversees history and has a plan for history, and therefore history arcs toward justice and redemption. If you are massively inexplicably successful in history, you are in sync with that divine plan. And so if you find yourself in the 1860s, a pathetic loser of history, I mean, these theologians talked very honestly in ways that are very courageous. And these are, the muftis of Egypt. I mean, these are top mainstream serious theologians. And they talked in ways that are far more courageous than anything you can say in Western elite academia today about the Muslim world. And they said, what happened to us? How did we get so weak and backward? Our science is bad, we're poor, and we're geopolitically pathetic. And they developed this discourse on Islamic weakness as a theological problem, as a signal. If Muslim success was a signal of closeness to God and the truth of the revelation, then Muslim failure was a signal of distance from God. And so it created a movement of return to piety. Because of this special logic within Islam that doesn't exist in Christianity or Judaism, it developed this pietistic movement as a path to a return to Muslim success and power.
And it's not a perfect parallel, but it isn't all that dissimilar from the prosperity gospel and the way that Christians justify, like so-called Christians justify their material success by believing, by truly believing that their good fortune on this earth is a blessing from God, right? And that if they were doing that, and that people would be better off materially if they simply were better Christians, right? If they loved God in the correct way, then they would be rewarded with money, right? I mean, that's the basics of the prosperity gospel.
That's how they justify living in wealth. You know, like this is what God wants me to have: a private jet and this big old mansion and all this stuff.
And my success is proof positive of what a good person I am, right? Like the material rewards of this world are a result of me being good and God smiling upon me, right? Which, if you've read the Bible any, it's not in there, okay? Like it's basically the opposite over and over and over again. But there's an amusing sort of correlation there with something that I had not heard before, that there's a pervasive thought in Islam about like the reason that they've had the success that they've had, that there's a reason that there's 1.5 billion Muslims, and that reason is that, well, they're in the right? Like they are correct in their beliefs, and therefore they receive the blessings of the world or of God. And it was, for me in that moment, it was proof that the human brain basically functions the same no matter where you are. You know, people be people no matter where you are.
And I think people will always find some explanation to describe their current circumstances. So yeah, like if you're Joel Osteen and you're rich beyond imagination through religious teachings, which runs counter to this sort of living, right? You think a religious person should be somebody that's like modestly living life and helping the community and doing outreach and all this stuff, and he's living the life of like an NBA player, basically, right? And so how do you explain that away? Oh, prosperity, God wants me to be affluent. That's what it is. You know, and the reasons why things are not going great for your life is because fuck you, guy. God must not like you, right? So that is suitable for that situation. If you're Iran, the story that you have to come up with to explain away the situation, to explain away this humiliation, is to reframe it and say that we're being persecuted by the great Satan of America that's propping up our great foe Israel. Like, and that's going to be their argument. Like, hey, the UK, France, America, like that first go around, they were basically defending Israel against our attacks. And now America is actually, you know, unlike what Rubio said at the beginning of this whole thing, which was basically we're here to defend Israel, but we're not here to attack Iran. That has now changed, where the U.S. is directly involved in attacking Iran. And so their argument is going to be, we have this great Satan to defeat. And that kind of storyline has existed since forever, to where like we're the little guy and we need to overcome this big bad foe, the you know, whatever. So like that's probably the angle they're going to go with, instead of like being disillusioned by embarrassment. I don't think that's going to stick around for too long. They're going to just focus on, look what we have to go up against, and we have to redouble our efforts and blah 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 blah. I will say though, just from my upbringing, the way that it was explained why the religion was righteous was that there was a lot of emphasis on the Christian Bible has been changed so often that you can't trust it, right? Because basically the Muslim religion, they talk up Jesus also, but they, you know, he's not the Son of God. He's just another of the many prophets like Moses and whatever, right? And so the Muslims have taken great care that the message of God is in this Quran that is not translated to other languages. Basically, their argument is like, this is like pure. It's in this one language. You have to learn this one language, Arabic, to learn the Quran.
Well, and apparently even learning the language is not enough, because I've heard that before. Like, even if you learn the language as an outsider, you won't fully understand it in the way that somebody that was raised in the language could.
Right. But
and that any translation is just outright fucking pointless.
Right.
That you can't possibly even understand it. That translating it into another language, you won't get any of the parts that matter.
Right.
Basically.
Right. And also, the other argument that was that there are so many denominations of Christianity. You have like a very liberal church, you have a very conservative church. Who knows what? You have the Protestants, you have the Catholics. There was a lot of that argument. But then when I grew up, I was like, the Iranians and the Saudi Arabians hate each other because one is Sunni and one is Shia. They're both Muslim, but they have. I mean, if Israel didn't exist, there would be this big conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So it's not like it would be like kumbaya without Israel. There would be the battle for which part of Islam is
no, it would
righteous.
Probably be even worse, right? Like not that it can be worse,
right,
but it would be the same existential battle
right,
for supremacy, and because it's just purely tribal,
right?
To some extent, it's worse when they're fellow Muslims who believe wrong,
right?
Right, because it's within your own house in
right,
some way,
right?
They're apostates. The United States is just the devil,
right? Yeah.
Like that. Your fellow Muslims are, the way that they're wrong is even more offensive to you.
Right.
Just to update, the latest headline tonight, of course, is that Trump decided there's a ceasefire, but neither Israel nor Iran are acknowledging that they've agreed to any ceasefire.
I just
at
saw
least to this point.
Headline that at least Iran has said that there's some truth to it, but it's still kind of like vague. Yeah. Maybe they're probably negotiating, but I think probably Trump is jumping the gun so he can kind of, because like over the weekend there was a bit of a schism in the MAGA world, right, based on this attack on Iran, where Marjorie Taylor Greene and others are against, and then Lindsey Graham obviously is for, and so there was this conflict, and maybe he's trying to paper that over by saying this was just a one-off. Everybody, let's get back to being one big happy family. And so like maybe there was something in the works. Maybe in the coming days Israel and Iran will announce some sort of temporary ceasefire, but Trump wants to get ahead of it, and he's announcing it prematurely.
Right. Is there any reason to take seriously the argument that Trump preempted a potential peaceful settlement here, that somehow negotiations were taking place, and by bombing the shit out of these nuclear facilities, he's decided to do an act of war instead of having peaceful negotiations about the future? Or is that just fucking purely disingenuous, and that there's no reason to believe that Iran was going to hold to anything that they agreed to because they, violated the JCPOA? They were almost certainly developing. I mean, it's so fucking stupid. Yes, they were trying to accomplish a nuclear bomb, right, despite agreeing that they would not be, like, they're signatories to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, right? Like, right, they're supposed to not be pursuing a nuclear bomb, and they are plainly pursuing a nuclear bomb. Why would we believe that they would hold to whatever agreement would come out of a potential negotiation at this point?
Right,
like it's a very silly thing.
Right. And also, I mean, when there was that agreement for 3 years, however long it lasted, there was some trade-off, concessions to kind of lift some sanctions, give some of the money that has been frozen back. But what was it, 2018? It's been now 7 years since the U.S. pulled out of that deal. So in the 7 years since, a lot of the sanctions are still in place. And so, I don't know what the negotiations were now, that, it didn't go far because the U.S. decided to strike Iran. But, I don't know where they left things off. And I don't know if during the ceasefire they're going to get back to discussing that. I don't know what the impasse is. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of inspection component to it that maybe Iran doesn't want to abide by. And maybe that's right, where, okay, we'll bomb you into compliance, because you're saying that this is a non-starter. I don't know. But, there could be some truth to where they were trying to negotiate some sort of settlement, and they just got to a point where like Iran is not going to budge on this, so let's try this other tactic.
Yeah. All right. Anything else happen in the news that is worth mentioning? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure things have happened.
There's a mayor's race in New York. It looks like it'll be either Andrew Cuomo or an actual fucking communist.
I mean, they're both running under the Democratic banner, right? But this Mamdani, what was the guy's name? I guess he's got some ties to some sort of group. What's interesting in this race
it's not
is
about the ties to a group. He wants there to be state-owned grocery stores, and he wants to do price and rent controls.
Right.
Like it's just.
I mean, they already have rent controls in some parts. I guess he wants to expand that. What I find interesting in this race is that both of them. Already, Mayor Adams, who ran as a Democrat, is now running as an independent. He's not a very popular mayor. Actually, I can't think of the last time. Rudy was popular for a bit. You had the Bloomberg seemed like. This is me from afar. I don't live in New York, so I don't know if there were some displeasure. But I just remember the Bloomberg years were decent. The Giuliani years, I don't remember there being too much of a fuss. But everybody else, like de Blasio and this Adams guy, not a lot of support. I don't know what his approval rating is. But anyways, Adams realizes that he can't possibly win the primary on the Democratic ticket, so he's now running as an independent. And now Cuomo, who is the disgraced former governor of New York, and this guy, they both are saying that if they were to lose this ranked choice thing that's going to happen tomorrow, they're not ruling out running as independents in the general election. So basically, this could just continue. And I don't know if Cuomo and this other guy, if they siphon off votes to the point where Adams gets reelected. I don't know if that's possible, but
who the fuck is going to vote for Eric Adams?
I don't know. I don't imagine he has any support. It seems to me like I haven't paid attention to any of the polling, but I imagine Cuomo's going to win this, right?
He was clearly ahead for a while, and then there are a couple of polls in the last, like right here, up to the minute last weekend here. Because I think the election's happening, tomorrow night?
Yeah.
And that said that this was closer. And it's a ranked choice thing, and so you never know like how all of everybody's first, second, and third, and fifth choices end up making this thing shake out. But I think the basic understanding is that Cuomo is going to win. Not win outright, but win the party nomination here.
Yeah.
Also, I think worth noting that I don't fucking care who the mayor of New York is, and it has a very outsized place in the national conversation relative to how much it fucking matters.
It's like the big city,
Yeah, fuck it.
Because all of them. You have these mayors going on SNL. They're a fixture of American politics. Nobody really cares about the mayors of other cities, but New York is a big city.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else for us tonight, so we will head into the end here. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob Knight. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com, where you can find more from us, including the Billboard Hot 100 game, which we will record at some point later in the week, because it's getting late around here. The opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. For more from Mark. Abe, you said you went to the movies. How was your film experience?
I did. I went, since we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks, at least for this show, I went to two movies, one last week and one this week. So last week I went to go see The Materialists, or just Materialists. This is a movie with Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal. The advertisement would lead you to believe that this is a rom-com, like, two love interests for Dakota Johnson. She's got to pick one. And it actually plays out more like a drama. There's not a lot of comedy in this movie, right? You think, these are Dakota Johnson. Her boyfriend is Chris Evans, but he's broke. So the concept of this movie is that Dakota Johnson is a matchmaker in New York City. And she's trying to match single women with single men, obviously. And there's this montage showing the two different sides, and they all have these like unrealistic expectations of the other. Like you have these dudes in their 40s who they want these 20-year-old girls.
Sickos.
Yeah. And
Look at those sickos.
and then you have the women who want like rich guys who can take care of their every want. And then some others are like more reasonable. They're like, there's this one woman who is in her late 30s. She's like, I just want somebody like just a decent guy who I can have kids with. She wants to have kids, right? And she's like, I don't want to be old and die alone and have no kids. So she's kind of pressing the matter. And there are two. The movie overall is fine if you're into this sort of thing. It's a little weird at parts because there are two plot points that are a bit jarring. One of them, you have this desperate woman seeking a companion, and Dakota Johnson sets her up with somebody, and he rapes her. Right? That's in the story.
Movie sounds like a barrel of laughs.
Spoiler alert! Yes, and so this lady, she's suing the matchmaking service because like you set me up with this fucking rapist, and Dakota Johnson feels bad, so she. Her boss tells her, don't, the lawyers are handling this. They're not suing you. They're suing the matchmaking business and stay out of it. And she's like, I want to apologize.
This is why you take out as a matchmaker malpractice insurance, right? just like an ER doctor or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. So she chases her down. She finds out
what is the cop thing where the cops can't be prosecuted for shit that they
some
do
sort
on the
of
job? Qualified immunity.
Qualified immunity
for the police. Is there no qualified immunity for the matchmaker?
Yeah.
If I set you up with somebody, I'm now also responsible for that fucking guy's dick.
Right.
Like, I don't. That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But she felt bad, and so against the wishes of the company, she goes and finds the lady to apologize. Like, I can't believe this happened.
Don't acknowledge guilt here.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I don't know what she's doing. But the lady is pissed at her because she's like, you thought so little of me that you set me up with just some rapist, like, you don't think I deserve love? You think I deserved it? And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't know this guy was a rapist. Like, what do you
right.
You think I set you up with somebody who I thought was bad? He seemed like a decent guy. He's like, no, you just gave me some scrap dude. You didn't give me your good talent. You gave me this guy. And anyways, this lady is bereft of any friendship, let alone romantic partner. She has like no friends because later in the movie, she calls the matchmaker who set her up on this rapist date for assistance because this rapist is now back. He knows where she lives. So he's harassing her, and she needs the help of Dakota Johnson to save her. And so she comes.
Call the police, lady.
Yeah, I don't know why she didn't call the police. She calls her. Anyways, Dakota Johnson comes, saves the day. She stays with her. The lawsuit, I guess, is over, and Dakota's like, give me one more chance. I'm going to set you up with somebody. And she lets her. Like, that's a weird plot point. The second weird plot point is you have Pedro Pascal, charming fellow.
Very popular in everything these days.
He's in everything these days. So he is the rich, charming, successful guy. Chris Evans is a 37-year-old struggling actor, lives with 3 roommates, just in a bad way. He's chasing the dream of becoming an actor. He's not even off Broadway. He's like off Broadway. Like probably like in Jersey. Like not even anywhere near the bright lights of Broadway, right? But he's still pursuing this dream, and he loves Dakota Johnson, but Dakota's like, I don't want to live this life, where they had a flashback to where they were 5 years into their relationship, and he's circling around the dinner place to find cheaper parking because he didn't want to pay $20. And she's like, this is going to be my life? Like, you're just fucking with all the stress about $20? She's like, no, we can't do this. So she breaks up with him. Anyways, she gets on with Pedro Pascal. He just sweeps her off her feet. Whatever you want, I got it. Don't worry about it. He has this $12 million pad in Tribeca. He's got it made, right? And she just doesn't love this guy. Like, she loves this other guy, Chris Evans, broke Chris Evans. And the weird plot point is that Pedro Pascal is actually in this show. He's 5'6", and he got extension surgery. I don't know if you've heard of this, but you can extend your legs by up to 6 inches. And so he was 5'6", and now he's like 6'1", something like that. And he's ashamed of this. And she was like sleeping with him, and she was like brushing his leg. And he's like, what the fuck is all of these wounds?
With the scars?
Yeah, what's all these scars? And he's like, oh, fuck. Like, You know, like I knew you're gonna find out, and he's like being all sheepish.
You can add 6 inches to your situation?
If you could, like, wouldn't it be? It would look weird if your torso did not match. I mean, I guess,
like where do you stick the 6 inches so that you don't look completely out of proportion?
it's all in the leg area, you know, like above the knee.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's like, as soon as I got this surgery, which was about $200,000, like his life improved. Like all the women wanted him. His job prospect improved to where he can make all this money because like he was more confident. There's this weird height thing that a lot of the women in the montage they show, like what their wants are. It's always tall. Like they can't be under a certain height. And so, like, basically, the concept of this movie is like these unrealistic expectations people have in the modern dating world is forcing people to behave in these weird ways, where they're, instead of trying to see if there's a match, there's a connection, compatibility, they're worried about some resume that they have to adhere to, and people are behaving in this weird way, and ultimately they won't be happy pursuing materialistic things. And so, in the end, Dakota Johnson chooses the broke Chris Evans, and he's like, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna stop.
That sounds like she's got a perfectly good career.
Right.
Like, what do you,
she's,
like,
yeah.
you know.
She wants this a man to, you know, I don't know.
She wants millions upon millions of dollars.
Right. It's never enough.
Stop being a baby, Dakota Johnson.
Right. But anyway, it's a fine movie. It's just, you know, like I said, you would think this is a rom-com. There's like, again, no jokes.
Not a lot of not a lot of rom.
I will say though, like I remember reading this article. I don't remember where, but there was some sort of resurgence of smoking portrayed in TV and film. And
I read that somewhere too.
This movie was full. They were just smoking up a storm. Like at the beginning, Dakota Johnson, they're going to smoke break outside. Everybody's just smoking. Just smoking is back. There was another movie.
Let's not make smoking cool again.
Yeah, they're making and not like those weird things that the kids are using, like actual old school cigarettes, you know.
Right.
And so yeah, there's a lot of that. And then this past weekend I went to go see 28 Years Later. There was that movie 28 Days Later, many years ago, and this is the follow up to that. It was fine. The beginning of this 20 years later, they explained that the island is basically a permanent quarantine zone. The rest of mainland Europe, they're living their lives as normal. But if you set foot on the island, then you can never leave. And so they just kind of follow the story of this family that lives on the island, and they're by the mainland to where like whenever there's a low tide, there's a pathway to the mainland, so you can go there for a few days, for a few hours, and come back before the high tide. And so in the story, the father, he takes, it's like a rite of passage. He takes his 12-year-old son to the mainland to fight these zombies, so he knows what to do, you know, as he's becoming an adult. The mother's against it, but she's got some sort of ailment that's not clear what it is. There's no doctors on the island, but there is a doctor on the mainland. Turns out she has some sort of cancer, but the father has no interest in like getting to the bottom of it because he didn't want to go see the doctor on the mainland because he's some crazy guy who burns people. So he had like this image of him as like some crazy guy. But his son, his 12-year-old, he wants his mom to live, so he takes the mother to the mainland to find the weird doctor who's actually not that weird. It's Ralph Fiennes is
nice.
to this, and he's got a very comfortable relationship with death, and he's actually a doctor, so he assesses her, and he's like, you have advanced cancer, it has spread, you're gonna die, and the kid's like, you know, coming to terms with it, and he has some sort of thing to put her to sleep. And then he just kills her. And she was going to die anyways. And the kid comes to terms with it, and the movie kind of comes to a close.
This is a zombie movie, sort of?
There's a lot of zombie part. There are a lot of prosthetic nudity in this movie.
Oh, yeah?
There's this one guy. The thing is called...
We're talking about swinging zombie dick
here,
Abe?
Yeah. This guy's... packing with his prosthetic. There's this. He's called Alpha. He just runs around naked. He's like 6'8" or something. He's this very tall, muscular build.
Where'd they stick his 6 inches?
And it was just very distracting just watching the movies. This guy just running around, and he's got a horde of people.
Is this Danny Boyle again, or is it?
Yeah, this is a Danny Boyle production.
Okay, because he did the first one. I liked the first one a lot, as I recall. I haven't seen it probably since I saw it.
Man, am I forget? Was that Cillian Murphy or was that somebody else?
Yeah,
Cillian.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
my favorite, the only thing that I really remember from that movie is a still frame. I think Cillian Murphy is like walking through a church or outside of a church or something, and there's graffiti on the wall, and it just says, "Repent, the end is extremely fucking nigh." Which struck me as very funny at the time and has stuck with me for fucking 20 years, apparently. So.
Yeah. And on the TV front, I watched the Led Zeppelin documentary on Netflix. It was They released it in the theaters. I never got a chance to see it. Not bad. You know, that drummer who dies, like they don't.
What's his name? Bonham.
Yeah.
John Bonham.
So
drunk himself to death. Correct.
So I did not. They don't explain that. So they're showing all this archival footage, and then there was like a little caption saying that John Bonham died in 1980, and this is first ever released audio of something he said before his death. And I was like, that's pretty. I mean, they're pretty young. So like 1980, he must have been like in his 30s. And I looked it up, and like you said, he drank himself to like 40 shots of liquor, which is an ungodly amount of liquor.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And like, I don't know if he was going. I guess he was going through some sort of depressive episode, but that is a lot of liquor to take down in a short period of time. Apparently, a well-regarded drummer.
Spectacular! Yeah.
But like I said, it's a pretty solid documentary.
Well, good. I've been wanting to watch that. I just have not gotten around to it. We haven't gotten around to watching much of anything ever, basically since baseball season started.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That has continued apace. I did watch the basketball game last night after we got back from baseball, and was frustrated to see the
you're so
Pacers
close.
Lose. It's not a wonderful. I know everybody complains about basketball to the point where it's lame to complain about basketball, but it really can be an ugly, ugly sport these days with the chucking up of the threes from distance, and it's like at some point it's like no long. Even when the three goes in, it's like he threw that ball in from a very long way away. That's very, very cool.
Right. Somebody was to your point. They were just showing footage from just as recent as 10, 12 years ago. They were showing like the Miami Heat, the LeBron years in Miami, just like 12, 13 years ago. And the style of play is so much different. Basically, there's a lot of congestion in the paint. People were still making their twos. There were some threes, but there was a more balanced kind of like scoring back then, just like I said, like a dozen years ago.
Or even like watching somebody get off a fucking 12-footer now is like it's not as cool because everybody's so spread out.
Yeah.
Like it's okay, he made an open shot from just outside the paint.
Right.
Neat.
Right. That is true, yeah. Because basically there were a lot of contested shots from that distance in the past to where now you have to cover so much ground that you have to kind of sacrifice those shots.
And I was watching, again, like granted, I watched basically no basketball this year at any level. Yes, the amount of basketball that I watched last night was significantly more basketball than I've seen.
And you had a
over
financial
the course of the last
interest in the outcome.
calendar year. Yes, very, very attuned to the outcome. But I'm watching what's his name, the white fella for Indiana,
T.J. McConnell, the great T.J.
McConnell. Dribbling around, he would like fucking dribble in circles for a while, and he would just dribble himself into trouble over and over and over again, and like nobody would be open, and he'd fucking throw up a crazy shot, and sometimes it would work, and more often than not, it seemed like it didn't. And then he went on a run in the third quarter where he scored like 10 out of 14 points or 12 out of 18 points or something like that. But yeah, not a lot of fun to watch that sport, basketball.
Better than Love Island, though.
Yeah.
I was able to, have the shot by shot. Anytime there's audio, your eyes gravitate toward the audio source, and I was watching a lot of that, and so Whatever complaints you may have about basketball, at least it's...
You got to stick that's when you pull up YouTube TV on the phone, you stick your headset in, and that way at least you can have the audio.
That's true, yeah.
Of the game, and then not be distracted by all the ladies watching their Love Island. So I think it's safe to say that by this time, 2 weeks from now, this will be a Love Island recap podcast.
You know what, Bob? It's not a bad show. You should give it a chance.
Yeah.
They have no gimmick. I don't understand. There's no immunity reward. There's no nothing. There's no gameplay. It's just a bunch of... Actually, you know, it's funny. Going back to 28 years later, there's a scene where some dude from Sweden, like he's there to patrol the quarantine, and his ship, something happened with the ship to where he ends up on the island, and now he's fucked too, because once he sets foot, you can't go back.
That is how quarantine works.
So he's talking to the young boy with the mother, and he's telling him about his life back in Sweden. He's like, he had a friend who's basically like a Uber driver, and he was talking shit about what kind of life is this? You're an Uber driver. Basically, life outside of this island is like our world. It's all normal. Everybody's going about their life. And so he's shitting on his friend, who's this Uber guy who's going nowhere. And he's like, I'm going to the military. I'm doing something with myself. And now he's like, I'm the fucking idiot. I would kill to be a fucking Uber driver right now. But he was showing a picture of his girlfriend, and his girlfriend looks like somebody from Love Island. A lot of plastic surgery in the face and the chest area.
Oh yeah, is that one of the gimmicks of this show? Is that everybody's?
Oh yeah, everybody. Even though they're in their 20s, everybody's like done up. It's weird. But the kid who grew up on this island without access to the internet, right? He looks at her and is like, "What's wrong with her face?" Like, and he's like, "What do you mean? She's hot. What are you talking about, kid?" He's like defending his girlfriend, and he's like, we have somebody who's got like an allergy to fish or something. Whenever she eats it, her face
too many bee stings.
Yeah, her face becomes like hers. He just didn't get he was so disconnected from what's going on in mainland Europe. But it reminded me. I mean, if you watch like 2 seconds of Love Island, you'll see that there's a lot of work done.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you couldn't possibly watch just 2 seconds of Love Island. You'd be immediately hooked. Anyway. So yeah, I have nothing to add to the pop cultural conversation this week, I'm afraid. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
Still
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.